Well, we're almost done, and we've got just a few more chapters to look at. This is going to be a short one about public education. So, one of our big 3 E's of fire prevention is education. And when we're talking about education, we want to make sure that we're doing our best to reach all people in every culture, in every age group, with a message that they need to hear. So, education is one of those things we're going to talk about today where we need to be tailor made. I remember in the fire station, the little kids would come by sometimes. And usually the newest guy gets the responsibility of giving the kids a tour. So we had this rookie this one time, and I was kind of keeping an eye on him while this kindergarten or preschool group were getting a tour of the fire station. And he starts explaining to them the pump panel and how the pump works. And I kind of stepped in and I thanked him for all his help and tried to do it real subtle. But then I said, here, let me show the kids some stuff. And I took them back to the back of the, because they were all looking at him all glassy-eyed, like, what are you talking about? They had no idea. So I took them back to the fire station, or I'm sorry, the back of the fire engine. And I said, see this little hose here? And they all go, uh-huh. You know what that's for? That's for little fires. I said, see this big hose here? Yeah, that's for really big fires. And, we just walked around and we talked about little things, and I let them touch the things that were safe to touch and let them sit in the captain's seat, and every single one of them wanted to play with the MDT thinking it was a computer, and we just made it fun. And you got to tailor make it to the age group, because you know what? Kindergartens don't care about hose pressure and pounds per square inch and all of this kind of stuff. So tailor make it to the crowd that you're reaching out to. So let's look at this real quick. We're going to talk about fire safety education in the sense of presenting various types of presentations, various methods, various activities, and again, understanding how it impacts our own fire department operations. And we're going to talk about a 5-step process in putting together a fire prevention program. So, why fire and life safety education? Well, we have to realize that this is one of the ways we're going to impact people more than almost any other. It's one of, if not the most important function we provide. The old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If we can prevent something from happening, the benefits are insurmountable. Economic, life, health, environment, all of these things benefit when we don't have disasters. So what we want to do is we want to help people think in a different way. We're looking for behavior modification. We don't want people to be totally paranoid. I joked about that at the beginning of the class, that most of my students end up after this class being a little paranoid. And, I was a little paranoid when I was younger, when my kids were little. My wife thought it was ridiculous when I wanted to put bike helmets on them when they'd be in the shower. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't really do that. But I actually thought about it because I'd seen a kid that was injured really bad that slipped in the shower and cracked their skull. So, you can get ridiculous about worrying about every little thing. But what we want to do is we want to have a good hazard risk assessment and prevent bad things from happening. So people can't change. Actually, that should be people won't change unless they understand the reason, unless they see the need. So a good fire and life safety education program is going to impact our whole community. Now, we have to realize we can't be everywhere. And a lot of times we have rescues where we're off on one rescue and another one happens in our district. And a fire engine from another district has to come over and take care of it. This is delays. Well, a lot of times, excuse me while I take a drink, a lot of times those calls that we're on are calls that were totally unnecessary. Somebody had a nosebleed or a tummy ache. So the more we can educate people on the proper use of 911, the better. So people, and also the more we can impact people's behaviors to prevent bad things from happening. People are the main cause of fire and injury. We need to work on their behavior patterns. Their basic instincts are different from safety because we're all selfish. It's like when you're driving, there's that one person that's in a hurry, darting in and out of traffic on the freeway, not even thinking about the fact that if they just tap another car, they could cause a mass pileup. They're just thinking about themselves. So, it's the same with all sorts of safety issues, not just driving. People are selfish and they're busy and they're in a hurry. So we need to impact the public. We need to realize that, Americans don't think about protecting themselves. They also, we need to realize we have an increasing number of seniors and we have an increasing number of children at home alone. And these are important things that we need to address with fire prevention. So education can modify behavior. We can change the way people think. And I think the greatest example is Smokey the Bear. Not as emphasized these days as he was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Maybe it started in the 60s. I forget. I think it was the late 50s. Smokey was a real bear. And I'm going to put a video on this chapter about Smokey the Bear that I'd love you guys to watch. It's kind of corny, it's old, but think about the target that it was reaching out to, that age group at that time. Nowadays, we might want to do a rap song with Smokey the Bear. Did you know that Smokey the Bear had a hit on the radio? Yeah, Smokey had his own song. It was on the radio. It was in commercials. It was on TV. Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear. Da, 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 I don't remember the words. Okay, now you know I'm not a singer. So Smokey is the most successful fire and life safety program ever, and second only to Mickey Mouse on recognizable animated characters. So we can make an impact, but we've got to think about how we're going to do it. The problem is we got to get people to take ownership of their problems, and getting out there and educating people is how we're going to do it. After the station fire, we thought, I hope this never happens again. And like I've told you before, in 2004, 175 died in Argentina in a nightclub, and in 2013, 232 died in a Kiss nightclub in Brazil, and then we already talked about the one in Russia as well. People are still chaining their doors. People are still doing things that are really not fire safe. So we got to get out there, educate them, and prove to them, yes, it could happen here, and help change behavior. So what are some of the programs that we could implement? Well, bicycle safety. You're taking this class in the summer. Right now, pool safety is a big deal. In the community where I live, we've had 2 near drownings in the last 2 weeks. So right now, LA County Fire Department is getting out there, and they're going on social media, doing everything they can to try and get the word out about pool safety. Back east, they have ice safety. Don't walk on the lake unless you are 100% sure it is iced over. We have our CERT programs that are growing in popularity, people getting prepared for natural disaster and environmental hazards. CPR training, seatbelt training, you know, child uh, child seats, car seats, fire and life safety skills, wildland urban interface. All of these are things that at the company level and at the fire prevention level we need to be getting out there and doing. So how are we going to do it? Well, there's a lot of different ways. We can go to schools, do their you know what are they what do they call them, the when everybody comes to the auditorium. I forget what they call them. Going and meeting with the kids, talking about stop, drop, and rolls, talking about different, programs, exit drills in the home. We actually have fire and life safety trailers. This is not the Shaky Quakey, but in LA County they have Shaky Quakey, and they go around to fairs, they go to all sorts of things, and people get inside and it simulates an earthquake, and then they use that to talk about earthquake preparedness. So school visits, assemblies, that's the word I was trying to think of. School assemblies, fire and life safety trailers, child safety academies, safety fairs, we'd go to a lot of those. Community has a safety fair, the fire department goes and brings their trailers, brings their educational materials. So this is the most cost-effective thing that we can do to impact our communities in safety, is to try and train people not to do the things that lead to a fire in your home, to avoid the behaviors that get children hurt while riding bikes. Wear a helmet and all of those kind of things. Let's save lives before the accident happens. And we can have an impact that's more long lasting. And not only this, it's a great marketing tool for us as firefighters. We go out there and we do this stuff, and the kids come away thinking we're heroes. It's fantastic. They're always waving at us. They wave with all of their fingers, unlike when they wave at the policemen sometimes, not all their fingers. They love the fire department. So let's keep it that way. When we go out there and we're educating the public and talking with them in a positive way, we're developing relationships, we're developing trust. So what we want to do is risk reduction. And this is sound economic programs. We can, for a very small amount of money, save a ton of money for insurance companies, for fire departments. What we want to do is we want to prove to the powers that be, the mayor, the city council, to fund these programs by showing statistics and how we make a difference with education. We also need to get out there and enlist help. Get other people to work with us, other coalitions. We already talked about the school districts, but we can get the news media on our side. We can get billboard companies. Billboard companies have a certain amount of billboards that are committed to public service. Well, let's get fire prevention billboards up there. It's free. So get that coalition going where we get other people involved helping us out. And if we can show this positive, then we can get some fiscal support. We can get the money into the program from the government, but sometimes it's a little hard to convince them. So, here's some more. News affiliates, neighborhood or HOAs, homeowners associations, apartment associations. I actually have in the past gone to a senior center, a senior living center, and I talk about senior safety, grocery stores, chamber of commerce, libraries, civic groups. All of these can help us. So sell the program by showing the results. You need to have goals that are measurable and achievable. So if we want to make an impact on pool safety. Get some posters up, get some billboards up, visit the grocery stores and safety meetings. Go to the schools towards the end of the semester and talk to the kids about water safety. All of these things, then we can we make a big push. Then let's keep statistics. And then we can show with our statistics if we achieved a difference by doing so. If we have success, that's a great motivator, and we can get those politicians to pay and play. So we need to, though, to have an effective program, as I said earlier, we got to target the age or education level of the people we're talking to. We also need to think about their level of interest. Let's talk about something or involve something that would be interesting to them. We have great little coloring books for the younger kids that have Sparky the fire dog and talk about stop, drop, and roll and about having an exit drill from your home and all that. Well, cartoons and comic books and coloring books aren't going to work with older people. We need to create something that's more of a level of interest for them and reach them in a different way. So we got to think about what's going to motivate these people. And we also need to think about the instruction methods. Let's make sure that we get somebody who's a good speaker to do this, right? We don't want to have, the guy like in Ferris Bueller. Yeah, we don't want that. We want somebody that's energetic, interesting to listen to. Hopefully you're interested in listening to this. The bottom line, we want to see a reduction or elimination of fire incidents, injuries, and death rates. So we need to compare our statistics to similar communities or one part of our community to another part of our community. So how are we going to put it together? Well, step one, we're going to identify the problems. We're going to identify the risks. That's the things that could happen, and the hazards are the places where they will happen or the people that will be the problem. So we need to look at the risks, the hazards, and our objectives. Why is this happening? Maybe we need to do a district-wide analysis. Once we've identified our problem, then we need to determine our target audiences. Are we going to go and talk to the kids? Well, the kids love seeing the firefighters all dressed up. And, we want to show them the firefighter dressed up with the mask on because it's kind of scary looking if you haven't seen it before. In the last 10, 15 years, there have been reports of children who hid from firefighters because they thought they were Darth Vader. They sound like Darth Vader with that mask on. I am your father, right? It sounds like Darth Vader. So they were scared. So target at the very young or the middle-aged or the elderly the program to the audience. Find sources for developing community partnerships. Then step 3 is you want to design a program. So what are you going to say based on the message and the available resources? Usually there's a very limited budget for public education. This is a really sad thing. The money goes to the red lights and the sirens, and yet we can make a much bigger impact right here with public education. So we need to choose the format to match our audience, put together a program, and design it. Then once we put it together and we've analyzed it and reevaluated it and evaluated and reevaluated, then we want to implement it. Now we want to do this in a fun, energetic way. We don't want the boring guy up in front doing this presentation. We want something that's contagious. The shaky quakey gets their attention. And it's fun and it's funny. You see all these people shaking and they're laughing and things. They have toy animals on the shelves and they're falling down. And they're not going to hurt anybody, but the message gets across. So, this gets their attention, snap their attention, and then zing them with the realities of what could happen. You need to ensure you have the mechanism to measure where the audience is before and after so that we can test and then evaluate again. So that's our step 5. How did we do? And here's a wildland fire prevention situation where they went out and said that we needed more brush clearance, but don't chop everything down. We need also to have trees and bushes and plants for erosion control and things like that. So this was a perfect example of a before and after. So once we've done it, we need to keep planning and evaluate and reevaluate because our culture has changed. The Smokey the Bear video that I hope you will watch, or at least watch part of it, reached a demographic and an age group at a time when it was made. But it wouldn't work very well today. The kids would all be rolling their eyes and think it's corny. And the movie star that's in it or TV star that's in it is not somebody that most people would even recognize today. His name's Dennis Weaver. And he was in a whole bunch of 1970s, 1980s TV shows. He was very popular, but, most people wouldn't even know who he is anymore. So we need to change, evaluate, keep planning, and keep doing statistics. So what are some of the sample topics? Matches are tools, not toys. Crawl low and smoke. We have a program in LA County Fire called EDITH drills, and it's an acronym, Exit Drills in the Home. Stop, drop, and roll. I'll bet you everybody listening to this lecture has, when they were a kid, heard stop, drop, and roll. Call 911 only for emergencies. Did you know that about 2-3 years ago, a 2-year-old saved its mother's life by dialing 911? Mom was having a seizure, something, and the child knew to dial 911, didn't know how to give their address, really didn't even talk very well on the phone, but that 911 call brought the fire department to the house and saved the mom's life. Adopt a hydrant, cooking safely, drown your campfire. All of these are, are good programs. Now, what about the media? How are we going to involve them? Well, first of all, make sure you see them as an ally. I don't know about you, but I don't trust the media sometimes as far as I could throw them. There's so much fake news out there today, especially in social media. The old saying, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true. So we kind of get cynical towards the media and towards social media. But when we're dealing with a program like this, we need to not let that cynicism affect us. We need to see them as an ally, bring them on our team, be positive, be diplomatic with them. Now, when we deal with them, we want to give sound bites. They don't want to hear a big, long story, just like you don't want a big, long lecture here, and we're almost done, by the way. They want sound bites, little snippets. So we need to think about what we're going to say and be clear and don't say anything more. Use every fire as an opportunity when you're on the news talking about the fire to talk about prevention and the greater fire program. Don't always have the same person up there because they're going to get bored with it. So vary the people who speak to them. Always brief them on upcoming events and the outcome of events. Highlight all educational events. Invite them to anything educational and enlist their help and participation. I'm going to give you an example of this later on. A couple other things about the media. Information teasers can grab their attention. They love statistics. So when you can give them statistics about dollar loss, injury numbers, operating alarms, and stuff like that, they love that stuff. Keep them professional, those sound bites, and be ready. Always, you know what? All of you, right now, listen to this. Wake up, okay? Consider the camera to be on all the time. And I would say that is true of every day, every moment of life now. We got cameras in our houses. We got cameras at every intersection. We got cameras, on the house across the street. You know, don't do something stupid outside anymore, and you know, think about what you're doing. And if you are involved in fire prevention, always be camera ready. Consider the camera to be on all the time. It's a really bad PR when the camera catches firefighters, you know, joking around, doing dumb stuff. And they love to catch that because they want to make us look bad sometimes. So make sure that your message that's getting out there is teaching good behavior, not bad behavior. Okay, we're going to close with an example. My father-in-law worked at Fire Station 47s for LAFD. He was a captain too. And from May through late June, the fire department, the fire station there, would get one grass fire after another. Every day sometimes, around 2:30 to 3:30, they would have these grass fires started by kids on their way home from school. And El Sereno is kind of a hilly part of LA, and it's in the East LA area. And it's a predominantly Hispanic community, partly Asian, a little bit of white. It's a little mixed, more mixed now than it used to be. It's predominantly Hispanic. And the kids would, on their way home, it became like a thing that one group of kids would teach the next kids. It became like a culture that every year, hey, we're going to burn off the hillsides. Well, the problem escalated and escalated and escalated until one year, at the top of one of the hills, there was a home, and the people weren't home except for Grandma, who they had built a little grandma's house for Grandma, and she was an invalid, and she wasn't able to evacuate, and she died. And people were losing their homes. So it wasn't just burning the grass hillsides, but now houses were burning, and firefighters were getting injured. And the problem just kept escalating and escalating and escalating. So one day after one of these fires, the battalion chief looked at my father-in-law and he said, "We got to do something about this. Can't we come up with an idea to try and prevent this, to change this problem?" Well, my father-in-law was my mentor, and he helped me get a job in the fire service. He also was a teacher at my church, and he was a very, very good communicator. And everything that I do, I know it's hard in an online environment, but in class, I'm pretty engaging. I have a lot of fun, and I interact with the students a lot. And everything I do in teaching, I learned from this man. So he sat down and he thought about it for a while, and he came up with an analysis. And the first thing that he said is that this is mostly the older elementary and the junior high kids. But what he realized is, we're in a Hispanic community. And in the Hispanic culture, family is very important. And community is very important. Neighborhood is very important. These are things that are drummed into most families from, and I know all of you who are Hispanic in this class, usually when I say this in class, all the Hispanic kids are nodding their heads up and down. Family is everything. So my father-in-law, he kind of tracked on that. He also went out and got a coalition. He had heard about this thing that the billboard companies would allow for public service announcements to be on billboards. He went to the schools and he requested to have assemblies at the upper ages of the elementary school and all the junior highs. So they went and they did this. Don was the public speaker, and he emphasized to the students that this is their own families and their neighbors that are suffering. And they showed a picture of this grandma. And he said, this could be your grandma. And he kind of poured it on thick, and he said, this is your neighborhood. Why are you burning it up? Why are you burning your uncle's house, your neighbor's house, your own house? Why are you doing this? And he had all of the firefighters up there. He had a very diverse crew. It was a task force, so there's like 12 guys and men and women that worked there. And they were every race, every color. And, he had them talk about their families and emphasize to them that you're jeopardizing the lives of these firefighters and their families. Then they closed up the program with an art contest that they promoted that day. And they said, we want you, they didn't accuse them that they were causing the problem. And they said, some people here are causing the problem. And they said, we need you to be our allies. We need you to make a poster. So every student went back to class and they worked on an art project for like a week to make a poster that was going to be put in school, but the winner was going to be put on a billboard in town as a fire prevention poster. They also had gone to local businesses and got prizes for the runner-up and third place and fourth place. And so kids were getting prizes as well as the one person who ended up on the billboard. This program was so successful. I read the statistics on it recently. I thought they didn't have any fires the next year, but I guess that's my own version of the story. What really happened was they had a 50% reduction. A 50% reduction in fires. That's a statistic that when shared with the Board of Fire Commissioners, they set up a commendation for my father-in-law, and you can see a picture of it here. And they put him in the newspaper. They took pictures with the chief. The chief of the department walked up, shook Don's hand, and he said, Don, take the battalion chief's exam. Your name is golden right now. All you got to do is pass the test, and you will be a chief. He chose not to do that. He really didn't want to be a chief. He didn't tell the chief that. But he went on to retire as a very successful task force commander and to be someone I'm extremely proud to know and to call my mentor. This is the kind of impact a public education program can make. I hope you hung in there and watched the whole thing on this one because it's a great story, isn't it? How we can make an impact. So I want you to think about, well, what would you have done? We usually do a project in class. And one group of students came up with the idea of a taco truck and bringing families to a taco truck where the firefighters were there kind of sponsoring the taco truck and handing out literature. I thought that was a great idea. And there's all sorts of other ideas you could come up with. What would you do if the chief said to you, how can we make a difference?